And of course, this is going to apply to each of the other steps. Your budget is going to matter when it comes to choosing your location, deciding how you're going to get there, booking. Hey guys, today we're going to be going over how we plan our trips. Okay, so for step number 1, deciding your budget. You want to make sure that you don't spend more money than you're comfortable spending. Don't feel pressured to force out more money than you should just because it's your weekend and you want to try to get the most out of it. Only spend what you're comfortable losing. Deciding your budget is probably one of the most important steps just because it applies to all other steps.
It's important for your transportation, your booking, your hotel, your food.
A lot of things. Overall, just make sure to stay within a budget that you're comfortable with. Don't feel pressured to go over. Just stick with what you're comfortable with so then in the future you could always go on more trips. Alright, that is going to bring us around to step number 2, which is choosing your destination. Now, this is also important because you're going to want to know where you're going for your trip. Your destination can be anything. It doesn't have to be anything grand or magnificent. It could even be something like going to that local diner that you've never been to before, or even something free like a park. Anything to just get out and change up the normal routine. A lot of people get caught up seeing on social media, people posting pictures by the beach and going out here, flying there. Just do whatever's fun to you. You know, if you like going to a museum, go to a museum. If you like going to the park, go to the park. If you like trying food like us, we love going to new restaurants. So choosing your destination isn't really about trying to go on the most lavish little vacation you can. It's really about just trying to get out, you know, and change things up once in a while. For our New York trip, we actually used Google Maps to plan out where we wanted to stay and the specific places we wanted to visit while we were in the city. And we just laid out like a general route. We're gonna touch on that a little bit more later.
Step number 3, deciding transportation.
Now, deciding transportation is important, and like we said earlier, your budget is going to come into play on almost all of these steps. If you're going somewhere very far, of course, you're probably going to be looking into possibly getting a flight. For us, though, we've only gone on trips that are close by since neither of us have passports yet, and April still isn't 21 yet, so we want to save a lot of the flying and grand adventures for after we can both fully enjoy our time at other places. But deciding transportation, you have to calculate all the costs of transporting, not only getting to the location in general, but if you have to transport in that location. For example, whether you're going to be driving to that location or flying there, you want to calculate the plane ticket, you want to calculate travel costs to get to the airport. If you're just driving, you want to calculate how far you're going, how much gas you're probably going to need. You want to make sure to have all of that figured out first, just so you're not blindsided. You don't want to mess up your budget at the end of the day. I always like to calculate unintended costs while traveling too. So if you want to stop and get something to eat real quick, or, you know, worst case scenario, you have a flat tire or something, you never know when, you know, you're looking to get an Uber at night and for some reason there's not available and you have to take a taxi, which most of the time is more expensive. So you always want to plan for worst case scenario when it comes to transportation. We went on that New York trip not too long ago, and we decided taking a bus was the most economic way. I could have taken my car, but it would have cost a lot in gas. I would have had to take tolls. So for us, economically, it was just better to go by bus. For you, it's whatever you can afford and whatever you're comfortable with. You don't want to get stuck somewhere that you don't know how to get around. Now, since you figured out your budget, decided where you want to go, and figured out transportation costs, now you can move on to booking in advance. So if you're going to be staying overnight someplace, you're going to want to know how much it's going to cost to go do that, whether or not you're going to a hotel or an Airbnb or sleeping over a friend's house. You're ultimately going to want to know exactly where you're going to be staying if that is part of your trip. If you're doing a same-day trip, you still are going to want to know worst-case scenario. You never know what could happen. We've been there where random events could happen and it could mess up a trip for you, but that's why it's always good to have a plan B.
Make sure you read the cancellation policy at the hotel that you're staying at. When we went to our New York trip, we couldn't cancel.
And because we couldn't cancel, we had to make sure that when we went on that day that we were actually going to go. It's definitely better if you can get a hotel that does have a cancellation policy where you could get your money back or whatnot, but with us, we just went with the cheapest option, and that is the dice we decided to roll that day. And you always want to be careful in case of worst case scenarios. For example, we booked tickets not too long ago to go to a concert. I'll already do a video on that. But we also got ticket insurance. So you never want to spend all this money planning a trip just for last minute. It all comes crumbling down because of, you know, something like weather. That's the worst thing. You had all this money set aside, you already got there, and then worst case scenario happens and you wasted all this money. So we're going to be going to Camel Beach soon, which is the largest water park in Pennsylvania. If we're booking 2 weeks in advance, we're not going to know the weather. The weathermen barely know the weather. We certainly don't. But you always want to make sure that if it does rain and you can't enjoy all the things you wanted to, that you still have a plan B, that you can still have fun that day, that, you know, it wasn't just a wasted trip, wasted transportation. So for me, I grew up a little bit in the area, so I know worst case scenario for this trip, I could always take April around to some spots and places where I grew up a little bit, different restaurants that I remember. Just something to still make it, you know, a trip worth going to and still memorable, even if things didn't go according to plan. Once again, we're still pretty new at all of this. We don't know everything, but we're learning as we go. And, you know, they say the best way to learn something is to teach it. So I guess that's a little bit of what we're doing here. And now the final step is step number 5, packing and preparing. So you're going to want to make sure you have everything that you need to go on that trip. With this step, you're really going to want to brainstorm, especially if you're like us and want to prepare for worst case scenario. You're going to want to really make sure that you're well prepared for the trip. Pack some sunscreen, pack a phone charger, a power bank, clothes, toiletries, activities, snacks, just anything that you think you would need for the trip.
And I would always say, no matter where you're going, make sure you have enough water.
We could say from personal experiences, everywhere wants to charge as much as possible for water. Alright, so for example, for our trip to Camel Beach, we're going to be deciding our budget. We're going to decide how much money we want to spend. This is a water park. Tickets are about $50 each. And of course, this is going to apply to each of the other steps. Your budget is going to matter when it comes to choosing your location, deciding how you're going to get there, booking, and finally packing and preparing anything. So that's why step number 1 really is the most important. Decide your destination. Obviously, Camel Beach is the destination. Step number 3, deciding on transportation. Since it's close, we're just going to take a car. No need for a flight or a bus or anything like that. Number 4, booking in advance. Make sure that your tickets are covered and that your hotel stay is covered. We're going to book our tickets in advance. We'll probably also save money while doing that too, which is nice. And for the hotel, it'll be the same case. One of the only things is that, for example, for the hotel, if worst case scenario comes and it does rain that day, having a cancellation policy would be nice, because then if I did want to show April some scenes from when I was younger around that town, I can do that and we can still go home the same night without necessarily spending the money still on the hotel. So that's why you really want to look into all of that when you're deciding and planning out your trip. And then finally, packing and preparing. So for our trip to Camel Beach, we're going to want to make sure that we pack sunscreen, phone chargers, power bank, clothes, toothbrush, other toiletries, some games for the hotel and whatnot. Water, snacks, you know, especially water, that's an important one. So that's how all of these steps here can really factor into how you're going to be going on your trip. I just want to emphasize that you can do this really anywhere. Even if it's like a free trip, for example, you can still go through all the steps. For example, we did that KFC video. So our destination was KFC. Our budget was maybe $20 for the sandwiches. We planned out transportation. I drove there, so that was pretty cheap, maybe $5 of gas at most. After that, we went on to booking. Obviously, you don't have to book to eat KFC. And then finally packing and preparing. So again, even for that like KFC video, we still had to bring the camera with us so we could record. We brought some drinks with us because I didn't want to pay extra for their soda or whatever. So even with a trip like going to KFC and trying the new sandwich, something that, you know, most people can try if they wanted to. You have a local one, you could even walk there. I always suggest doing whatever is economically beneficial to you. Even for us, if we can walk someplace, for the New York trip, if you've seen it, we walked to the bus station. We could have taken an Uber there or whatnot. Now, after the trip, we did take an Uber home just because we were so tired. Just do what's comfortable for you, comfortable for your budget, and the most important thing is just to have fun. Don't ever stress yourself out over this stuff, because then you're not going to want to do it. That's how it is for us. We're not going to push our budget over limits just to have an extra good time, because you're not going to. If you're stressed about the money, you're not going to have a good time, and there's no point in doing it then. The most important thing is just have a good time, whether you are going to a water park, whether you're going to a concert, or whether you're just grabbing some KFC to try their new sandwich. Have fun, you know, that's the goal, happiness. So just get out there, have fun, and have a good time. All right, so we hope you guys enjoyed this video about our 5-step approach. If you do things differently, please let us know. Again, we're not experts here or anything, and we're always looking for new ways to improve on this ourselves. So if you have anything you want to say, just leave it in the comments, let us know. We really want to stress your trips don't have to be anything grand. You don't even have to spend money for them. Even just going on a walk around the park is still better than just staying at home. A lot of this did stem just from quarantine, not being able to go out and just go out and live. Don't do anything to stress yourself out, and just get out and have fun. Please share, subscribe, comment any video ideas that you guys might be interested in us doing. We're going to catch you guys later. Good seeing you. See you guys. Peace.
See you in the next one. Bye.